that is biofuels. We will start with what is a biofuel. So any hydrocarbon fuel that is produced from an organic matter, that is living or once living material, in a short period of time, days, weeks or even months, is considered a biofuel. So again, every word of this definition is important for us to understand what is a biofuel. So we look at every word. Any hydrocarbon fuel. What is hydrocarbon? Any molecule that is having both carbon and hydrogen atoms. For example, our petrol has carbon and hydrogen atoms. At the same time, alcohol is C2H5OH. So ethyl alcohol also has carbon and hydrogen. So that is also a hydrocarbon. So we see alcohol is also a hydrocarbon. Our petroleum is also a bigger molecule, but still it will have fuels. Such fuel that is produced from an organic matter. So organic matter means something that is derived from living sources or biological sources. So produced from organic matter. The organic matter can be living or once living material. That is, when the fuel is being produced, the organic matter need not necessarily be alive. Even after it is dead or dried, for example, even after a plant is dried off, that is straw, it can also be called organic matter. And fuel can be produced from even straw. So organic material can be living or once living in a short period of time. So now comes the most important part. That is, we know all petrol and petroleum products are fossil fuels. So what is fossil fuel? Fossil fuel is basically when animals or organic matter dies and gets underneath different layers of Earth's surface, they undergo certain chemical changes. That is, we know fossils as in old living organisms that have been preserved. So fossil fuels are also derived from such organisms that have undergone chemical changes due to pressure and heat in deep layers of the earth. So our petroleum and petroleum products are also produced from organic matter, and they are also hydrocarbon fuels. So what is the difference between this petroleum and petrol products and biofuels? So the difference is biofuels are produced in a short period of time. We know that petroleum is a fossil fuel and it has been produced over thousands of years, as in the organic matter goes through chemical changes over thousands of years to become the petroleum products that we are getting today. Whereas biofuels, it takes only a short period of time, that is days, weeks or even months to produce biofuel. So this is one of the crucial difference between our normal fossil fuels and biofuels. So we have seen what are biofuels. Now we will see the different types of biofuels. This is particularly important for prelims point of view and also for understanding what is the importance of biofuels. So the first is first generation biofuel. First generation means the biofuel is produced from food sources such as sugar, starch, vegetable oil or animal fats. So all these are the sugar, starch, all these are organic matter and are also food sources. These are taken by human beings as well as animals. So first generation biofuels are produced from these food sources. For example, we have bioethanol. Bioethanol, that is alcohol, that can be produced by fermentation of these substances such as sugar or starch. So bioethanol is an example of first generation biofuel. So, but we see there are certain disadvantages with first generation biofuels. That is, first generation biofuel is produced from food sources. We already have problems with food security. There is not enough for human beings or animals to consume food. So if we start producing biofuels from such food sources, it will not be as advantageous as we think it is. So it might lead to food scarcity. So what we have done is we have gone on to second generation biofuels. So here what is the problem? There is a conflict with food security. So now we have gone to producing from non-food crops or portions of food crops that are not edible and considered as waste. So we see the problem is this is human food or animal food. So we started making fuel from waste products or non-food products, that is stems, husks, wood chips and fruit skins. For example, after we process rice, the grain is processed, we are left with husk. So that husk is not for consumption. We can use that for production of biofuel. So that is still an organic matter and it contains carbon and hydrogen. So it can be used to produce biofuel. So this solves our problem of that conflict with food security. So now we do not have any problems with food security, but still there are certain problems with second generation biofuels as well. So what are that? So here if we see, these are produced from non-food crops. If a farmer takes up his farm for production of non-food crops exclusively for producing biofuels, so he is changing the land use of his agricultural land from food crops to non-food crops. So here also we might not have conflict directly with food security, but there is a conflict with land availability. That is, if there is 1 acre of land producing rice, but we have seen that second generation biofuels can be produced from a crop such as jatropha. Such crops are non-food crops but are used in production of biofuels. What the farmer does is stop cultivating rice and he will start cultivating these non-food crops. So what happens ultimately? The production of food or the production of food grains will be decreased. So there is a problem with land availability. So what we have done is, to solve this problem, we have gone to third generation biofuels. So what are third generation biofuels? Third generation are produced from microorganisms like algae. So here there is no relation with any crops. Here we cultivate algae. We can take a small body of water and we can cultivate algae. Algae is also unicellular or microcellular plants. So these are also organic matter and these can be used to produce biofuels. So in this way, there is no conflict with food security or land availability. So this way we have solved these two problems. So but still there are some problems with third generation biofuels. That is, it won't take up more carbon dioxide inside than what it gives out. That is, there is net emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So it is polluting at the end of the day. So to tackle this problem, we have gone on to fourth generation biofuels. This is the latest and this is produced from crops that are genetically engineered to take in high amounts of carbon and are grown and harvested as biomass. That is, these are specially genetically engineered plants that will be grown so that the plant will take more carbon than it gives out as biofuel. That is, for example, this plant, after it has been converted to biofuel and has been used, it will still leave some carbon residue, that is carbon capture, that can be captured, so that won't be released into the atmosphere. So it is not a net emitter but net capture. So it takes in more carbon dioxide than it is emitted. So this is the latest generation of biofuels. Now we see certain advantages and disadvantages in biofuels. We'll first look at what are the advantages. So there is, biofuels are renewable source. So we can grow as many crops, or we can grow as much algae and produce as much biofuel as we want. So it is renewable, it is not limited in number. And then availability. For example, if we take fossil fuels like petroleum products, they are only available in certain parts of the world, that is the Middle East or certain river basins or offshore petroleum sources. So it is not available all throughout. Whereas if we take biofuels, they can be available anywhere. We can grow algae or crops anywhere and convert it into fuel. And then comes, it is less polluting. Biofuels are comparatively less polluting than fossil fuels. Why? For example, if we take municipal solid waste can be converted to biofuel. So here we are preventing this municipal solid waste to become pollutants. It will become fuel and it can be used. So it is less polluting than fossil fuels. Next comes economic advantages. So biofuels, they are produced from crops. If a farmer produces a crop for biofuel, he will get more money than what he could have earned through food crops. So it gives some economic advantage to the farmers to increase their income as such. So next comes disadvantages of biofuels. So after seeing the advantages, there are a few disadvantages with biofuels as well. What are those? So biofuels are less efficient. This is primarily the reason why the use of biofuels is not as much as our petroleum products. So what is less efficient? So if we see the amount of energy produced, for example, by 1 liter of petrol, if 1 liter of petrol produces certain amount of energy, biofuel, for example bioethanol, 1 liter will not produce this much. It will only produce, let's say, 80% or 60% of the energy. So it is not very efficient. Biofuels are not very efficient in producing the energy. So this is one of the most important disadvantage that is stopping us from increasing the use of biofuels. Next comes, it affects food and land availability. As we have already seen, food and land availability is a problem in first generation and second generation biofuels. At this moment, these are the only two kinds of biofuels that are in production right now. Third generation and fourth generation biofuels are still yet to come into the application phase. So this is an important disadvantage in the use of biofuels. Next comes high water usage. So the water usage to produce a non-food crop such as jatropha for the production of biofuels or for growing algae for third generation biofuels is very high. We already know that there is water stress in the country as well as the world. So this becomes an important disadvantage for increasing the production of biofuels. So this is very important topic for prelims examination as well as mains examination, because we have something called ethanol blending program. What is this ethanol blending program? in this program, the government aims to increase the blending of, for example, if we get petrol from a petrol bunk, the government says that 20% of this should be ethanol, bioethanol. So 20% bioethanol and the rest 80% is our petroleum product. So we are blending ethanol with petroleum. So we have a program called ethanol blending program, where we aim to introduce 20% of bioethanol in the petroleum products. So recently government has also increased this particular 20% and also moved the timeline ahead. So this becomes an important topic for both mains as well as prelims examination.